Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to try and help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about gender identity. And so we're going to pick up talking about perspective on gender development, nature, and nurture. What accounts for gender differences, and why do some of them emerge with age? The most influential explanations, until recently, is centered on the differing experiences and social expectations that boys and girls meet almost from birth. And like I said, dads are worse than moms about that, so dads don't put all these expectations on the boys and girls. These experiences and expectations concern three related aspects of gender identity: gender roles, gender typing, and I'm going to put in gender stereotypes. Gender roles are the behaviors, interests, attitudes, skills, and personality traits that a culture considers appropriate for males and females. And that varies from culture to culture. In Africa, the males dress up and put makeup on and dance for the females, you know? So every culture is different. They have their own male-female expectations, and that's passed on from generation to generation. All societies have gender roles. Historically, in most cultures, as in Isabel Allende's Chile, women have been expected to devote most of their time to caring for the household and children, while men were providers and protectors. And nowadays, that's changed. A lot of women want to have a career. They want to do things outside of caring for a home. If you don't, and that's all you want to do is care for the home and kids, that's fine. You know, there are men whose wives make more money than them and are just working a job, and they decide they're going to be a stay-at-home dad. And that's fine too. You know, it's whatever you want out of life. You know, you don't have to be stuck in a gender role that doesn't relate to you. You know, like I said, these things are passed down. And if you want to change up the script, you certainly can. It's about, you know, what you want to do. Women were expected to be compliant and nurturing. Men to be active, aggressive, and competitive. In these culturally defined roles that Allende rebelled against. Today, gender roles in Western cultures have become more diverse and more flexible than before. Because like I said, you could be a, working mom or stay-at-home dad, it's whatever works for you guys. Gender typing. In the process by which children learn and acquire a gender role. Takes place early in childhood, but children vary in the degree to which they become gender typed. Gender stereotypes are preconceived generalizations about male or female behavior, such as all females are passive and dependent. They're not. All males are aggressive and independent. They're not. Gender stereotypes pervade many cultures. They are seen to some degree in children as young as 2.5 or 3, increase during the preschool years, and reach a peak at age 5. The positive qualities to their own sex and negative qualities are attributed to the other sex. So preschoolers and even much older children often attribute negative qualities to other cuties, boys are gross and, girls are stupid and things of this nature, which none of these things are true. But it becomes a thing that is said, and so other kids latch onto that. And that's, like I say, that everyone goes through a homosexual phase, and that doesn't mean you want to have sex with the other, same sex. In that regard, the psychological regard I'm talking about, is where you wanted to spend your time with females only if you're a female and males only if you're a male. And like you think the other sex has cooties, you know. So that's a gender stereotype that, you know, we might hear. Still, among preschoolers, both boys and girls call boys strong, fast, and cruel, and girls fearful and helpless. And that's the terrible stereotype, you know, to put on your kids, because if you tell the boy that he is mean or cruel or whatever, he might feel like he is. He'll grow up to be that way. Tell the girl she's helpless or whatever, she might grow up and be that way. So you got to watch what you're putting into the children, you know, because you get out of them what you put into them. So if you want to get good things out of them, you need to put good things into them. You can't fill the child with bad things constantly and expect they're going to grow up and produce good things. It's don't work that way. And if it eventually does, it takes them a long time to get to that point, because they have to undo all the garbage you put in them. Biological approach. The existence of similar gender roles in many cultures suggests that some gender differences may be biologically based. So sometimes you're born with a gender difference. You heard it here. Sorry, you heard it here. Science is a fact. How do biological differences affect behavior? We do have evidence that the size difference in the corpus callosum, the band of tissue joining the right and left crucial cortical hemispheres, are correlated with verbal fluency. And that's this part in between here. Since girls have a larger corpus callosum, better coordination between the two hemispheres may help explain girls' superior verbal abilities, because we all know we have that if you're a female. We have superior verbal abilities. Our men sometimes are more like cavemen. You get grunts, you know. Just how that rolls out. Let's see. Other research focuses on children with unusual hormonal histories. Girls with a disorder called congenital adrenal hyperplasia have unusually high prenatal levels of androgens, which are male sex hormones. Although raised as girls, they tend to prefer boys' toys, rough play, and male playmates, and show strong spatial skills. Estrogens, female hormones, on the other hand, seem to have less influence on boys' gender-type behavior. Since these studies are natural experiments, they cannot establish cause and effect. Other factors besides hormonal differences, such as early interactions with parents, may play a role. Also, hormonal differences may themselves be affected by environmental or other factors. In any case, such atypical patterns of behavior have not been found in children with normal hormonal variations. So, there are people who are homosexual. There are people who are bisexual. And, you know, it could be nature. It could be nurture. There are differences, you know. And if you have a hormonal difference and it makes you a certain way, that's just the facts of life. So, you know, it's nature. There's a talented book here called As Nature Made Him. So if you're of the school of thought that it's an aberration according to God, it does say that you shouldn't lay with a man as with a woman. But also, like I say, I have witnessed homosexual cows and dogs, and if this happens in nature, then it's something that's natural. It is not the average, but like I said, there's no such thing as normal. We all fall one way or another of normal. So, that's a fact, Jack. Psychoanalytic approach. Daddy, where will you live when I grow up and marry Mommy? Asked Timmy, age 4. From the psychoanalytic perspective, Timmy's question is part of his anticipation of acquisition of gender identity. That process, according to Freud, is one of identification, the adoption of characteristics, beliefs, attitudes, values, and behaviors of the parent of the same sex. Freud and other classical psychoanalytics considered identification as important personality development of early childhood. Some social learning theorists also have used the term. When I remember having to break my little son's heart, I told him, honey, I'll be really old when you grow up and we won't be getting married. Mommies and sons don't get married. And it just broke his little heart because he wanted to marry me when he grew up, and that was so sad. But, you know, it's a natural part of development. You identify with the same-sex parent. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you identify with the opposite-sex parent. Everybody's different. But in general, the average is you identify with the same-sex parent, and you think you're going to grow up and do exactly what they're doing. Because your brain isn't quite mature enough yet to grasp you're going to get your own life and have your own thing going on. Cognitive approach. Sarah figures out she is a girl because people call her a girl. She figures out that she will always be a girl. She comes to understand gender the same way she comes to understand everything else, by actually thinking about and constructing her own gender typing. This is the heart of Lawrence Kohlberg's cognitive developmental theory. According to Kohlberg, children classify themselves as male or female and then organize their behavior around that classification. They do this by adopting behaviors they perceive as consistent with their gender. Thus, Sarah prefers dolls to trucks because she views playing with dolls as consistent with her idea of herself as a girl. And like I said, my parents and grandparents figured out we would get jealous of each other and want to play with each other's toys when we got them. So we got the same thing, you know, like we both got dump trucks, we both got little animals, we both got a doll of some sort. So, you know, that's a good way to keep it even with the kids, you know. According to Kohlberg, gender constancy, more recently called sex category constancy, a child's realization that his or her sex will always be the same, leads to the acquisition of gender roles. Once children realize they are permanently male or female, they adopt what they see as gender-appropriate behaviors. So, to a great extent, you know, they decide, oh, I'm a girl and that means I gotta be like this. I'm a boy and that means I gotta be like this. And there are some people who never feel like they quite fit in that way. And they're gonna, you know, change their role later on. So, shouldn't have been a surprise. A second cognitive approach, which combines elements of cognitive, developmental, and social learning theory, is gender schema theory. Among its leading proponents is Sandra Bem. Others are Carol Lynn Martin and Charles F. Halverson. A schema is a mentally organized network of information that influences a particular category of behavior. According to gender schema theory, children begin, very likely in infancy, to categorize events and people, organizing their observations around the schema or category of gender. They organize information on this basis because they see that their society classifies people that way. Males and females wear different clothes, play with different toys, and use separate bathrooms. Once children know what sex they are, they take on gender roles by developing a concept of what it means to be male or female in their culture. Children then match their own behavior to their culture's gender schema, what boys and girls are supposed to be and do. According to this theory, gender schema promote gender stereotypes by influencing judgments about behavior. When a new boy his age moves in next door, 4-year-old Brandon knocks on his door carrying a toy truck. He assumes that the new boy will like the same toys as he likes. Boys' toys. Children are quick to accept gender labels when told that an unfamiliar toy is for the other sex. They will drop it like a hot potato, and they expect others to do the same. However, it is not clear that any gender schemas are at the root of this behavior. Nor does gender schema theory explain why some children show less stereotype behavior than others. And that probably has to do with the prejudices of the parents. If dad is like, you will not play with a doll, you will not, like dresses, you will not do any of this stuff, then the boy's going to be more likely to resist these things because he's seeking the approval of the same-sex parent. And same thing with the girl. If Bob says, you can't have a toy truck, you can't drive that around and stuff, then she's going to be like, oh, okay, even if, that's something she wanted to do. Socialization-based approach. According to Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory, an expanded version of social learning theory, children learn gender roles through socialization, the process by which they acquire socially accepted standards of behavior in their culture. Bandura sees gender identity as the outcome of a complex array of interacting influences, personal and social. The way a child interprets experiences with parents, teachers, peers, and cultural institutions plays a central part. So, like I said, you're not stuck in one little thing all your life, unless you are, and that's a shame. You get out into the larger culture. You get into your bigger systems of influence. So everyone you meet, everyone you have an interaction with influences you in some way. You either take something positive away from that or something negative away from that. So, all of your experiences with others socialize you in some way. Family influences. Parental shaping of boys' and girls' personalities appears to begin very early. However, it is not clear how much effect parental influences actually have. Some studies have found that parental treatment affects children's gender knowledge more than their behavior. A girl may know that baseball bats are supposed to be for boys, but may use one anyway. I know I did. I played a lot of baseball and softball back in the day. Peer influences. Anna, at age 5, insisted on dressing in a new way. She wanted to wear leggings with a skirt over them, and boots, indoors and out. When her mother asked her why, Anna replied, because Katie dresses like this, and Katie's the king of the girls. So, we get socialized, and we admire people of our same sex. So, like, you might try to fit in with the popular girls, which, you'll find out later on that's just a bunch of bunk. But, if you see with someone we like and they're doing this thing, then we're more likely to copy this thing so we can be like them. Cultural influences. The Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky analyzed how cultural practices affect development. When, for example, a Hindu girl in a village in Nepal touched the plow that her brother was using, she was severely rebuked. In this way, she learned that a female she was restricted from acts of her brother was expected to perform. Isabel Allende at 5 received similar instruction when told that she must sit and knit with her legs together while her brothers were out climbing trees. So, culture does play a part. And certainly, sometimes children resent the way that their culture is told. Like, the woman from Chile. She wanted to be running and climbing trees like the boys. She didn't want to sit there with her knees together and knit, And some of us are like that. We want to do what appeals to us, what's fun to us, not necessarily what culture says we have to do. Play, the business of early childhood. Play is the work of the young, and it contributes to all domains of development. Through play, children stimulate the senses, learn how to use their muscles, coordinate sight with movement, gain mastery over their bodies, and acquire new skills. As they sort blocks of different shapes, count how many they can pile on each other, or announce that my tower is bigger than yours, they lay the foundation for mathematical concepts. As they play with computers, they learn new ways of thinking. So everything a child does is a foundation for what they're going to need to know later on. So your child should be allowed to play and explore and be a kid. You know, there are parents who try to grow the children up too fast, and then the kid is ill-equipped to be an adult because they did not learn these skills as they were growing up. So, you know, let your kids be kids. Types of play. Carol, at age 3, talked for a doll, using a deeper voice than her own. Miguel, at 4, wore a kitchen towel as a cape and flew around as Batman. These children were engaged in pretend play involving make-believe people or situations. And this helps their brain to grow. This is creative thinking. This is helping to expand the right side of their brain. Types of play. We did that anyway. Pretend play is one of 4 categories of play identified by Piaget and others as showing increasing levels of cognitive complexity. The simplest form, which begins during infancy, is active functional play, involving repetitive muscular movements, such as rolling or bouncing a ball. As gross motor skills improve, preschoolers run, jump, skip, hop, throw, and aim. The second level of cognitive complexity is seen in toddlers and preschoolers' constructive play, using objects or materials to make something, such as a house of blocks or a crayon drawing. 4-year-olds in preschools or daycare centers may spend more than half their time in this kind of play, which becomes more elaborate by ages 5 and 6. The third level, pretend play, also called fantasy play, dramatic play, or imaginative play, rests on the symbolic function, which emerges during the last part of the second year, near the end of the sensorimotor stage. Pretend play typically increases during the preschool years and then declines as school-age children become more involved in the 4th cognitive level of play, formal games with rules, organized games with known procedures and penalties such as hopscotch and marbles. So, you know, as the thinking grows, the ability to understand and the more complicated play becomes. The social dimension of play. In a classic study done in the 1920s, Mildred B. Parton identified 6 types of early play, ranging from the least to the most social. She found that as children get older, their play tends to become more social, that is, more interactive and cooperative. At first, children play alone, then alongside other children, and finally, together. So if you've had small children, you know that they play by themselves, and then sometimes they'll sit next to the kid and play, but they're still not interacting. But then eventually they start interacting and cooperate in the play. Like, you drive this and I'll build this, you know. And that is a skill that you need to be able to cooperate with other people as you age. So, you know, socialization is an important part of growing up. So even if you're homeschooling the child, you should take them to a park, you know, out to events and things like that, so they can meet other children, learn from other children, and play with other children, because they need the socialization. How gender influences play. A tendency toward sex segregation in play seems to be universal across cultures. It is common among preschoolers as young as 3 and becomes even more common in middle childhood. How culture influences play. The frequency of specific forms of play differs across cultures and is influenced by the play environments adults set up for children, which is in turn reflective of the cultural values. So adults, are basically in charge of how a child plays. They give you give the child the materials to play with. You might even set out, oh, this is how this works or whatever, but you shouldn't stifle the kid. Let them do what they want. If the cow can fly over the barn, that's fine. That'll help their imagination later on. They might become a writer. You don't know. Parenting. As children gradually become their own persons, their upbringing can be a complex challenge. Parents must deal with small people who have minds and wills of their own, but who still have a lot to learn about what kinds of behavior work well in society. So, children are very egocentric. So, like if your child was to say, I know everything, of course you know that your child does not know everything, but you're just like, okay, you don't have to be mean to them about it. You don't have to, no, you don't, they'll grow up, they'll learn, it's not that big a deal. You can just say, oh, do you really? Well, that's nice, Move on with your day. How do parents handle discipline? Are some ways of parenting more effective than others? Forms of discipline. Discipline refers to methods of teaching children character, self-control, and moral values and behavior. It can be a powerful tool for socialization with the goal of developing self-discipline. What forms of discipline work best? Researchers have looked at a wide range of techniques. So that is what discipline is supposed to be. You're teaching your child. You're teaching them, how to be a good, intelligent, loving, decent person. So discipline should not be, I'm the boss and I said this and that's why you do it. Because they're not going to understand that. They're just going to think you're being mean. And, if you're acting like that, you really are. But discipline has an end goal. Discipline has the end goal of teaching self-discipline. So the child can grow up and learn how to regulate themselves. So when you're disciplining, think of that. That's the end goal. It should not be a power struggle, because it's like another person told me about how I was raising my children and how, I need to be firmer and meaner and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't have to be like that, because I am the boss and I know that I am the boss. I don't have to prove that I'm the boss to my children. If I say go sit in timeout, they are going to go sit in timeout. If I, have to drag them back 5 times till they're done, that's what's going to happen, because I am in charge. I don't have to prove I'm in charge. I am in charge. So their way was not my way. And I was perfectly fine with not being like that. And I'm sure my children are probably more appreciative of the fact that I was not like that. So, behaviorist techniques, reinforcement and punishment. What are we going to do with that child? Noel's mother says. The more we punish him, the more he misbehaves. Well, that should have been the first cue for Noel's mother to realize the punishment was not working. That the punishment was either too severe or the punishment did not fit the crime. And all the child did was resent the punishment. They didn't learn anything. Discipline should be a learning opportunity, Like I said about my kid trying to run out in front of the car, and I yanked him back, smacked him on the rear end. And I explained to him, we don't run out the road because cars come up and down this road. Have you ever seen a squashed bug or dead animal on the road? Okay, that can happen to you. if you run out in front of one of those cars. It's kind of morbid to tell your child, but, you know, I want him to understand. I don't want that to happen to you. So when you come to this road, you stop and look both ways. Even though you're with me and hold my hand, you also look. Because one day, you won't be holding my hand. I want you to be able to look both ways for yourself before you cross the street. And that is how you teach the kid. It's a learning opportunity. Discipline should never be, I'm the boss and I'm bigger than you, blah, blah, blah. Because they're not going to learn anything that way. You need to teach them so they can learn self-discipline. Because the goal is someday you're not going to be there, and they need to be able to think for themselves and make right choices, right? So if you're just being the boss, you've not taught them anything other than that you're bigger than them and you can control them by force. That's what you taught them. They learned nothing. Okay. So I'm going to leave you there. So, you know, that's the thing I want you to remember, though, that discipline is teaching. You know, you need to reinforce the positive behaviors. You know, like I said, we had a tally chart. They got rewards for positive behaviors, like doing what I asked them to do the first time, doing things without me having to ask them. You know, oh, look what I did this. Oh, very good. You know, gold star for you. Because that shows initiative. And then punishment should also be teaching. You did the wrong thing here. You knew the rules. You knew that was the wrong thing to do. So now you get the bad tally, you know. So there needs to be a system of rewards and punishment so they understand in society you get rewarded for doing the right thing and punished for doing the wrong thing, because they're going to need to know that when they grow up. So that's all for now. Until next time.